In this video, I'll be showing you how I created a router tool guide for cutting grooves along the narrow edges of a plank board, which I'll be using for my DIY cable pass-through panel project. Let's get into it. How's it everyone? KC808 here. I decided to DIY a router tool guide out of plywood in order to efficiently cut grooves along the middle of a PVC board's narrow edges, which should make the effort for my DIY cable pass-through panel project a smooth process. All the tools and materials I'll be using are provided in the video's description. I'll be using a 2-foot by 4-foot plywood board with a 1/2 inch thickness for creating my router guide. I'm measuring about 2 inches for the height of the guide legs and cutting along the short side of the plywood. To assist with cutting a straight line along the plywood, I'm using another piece of wood as a guide and clamping it to the table. After the initial cut, I'll be dividing the piece of wood in half to give me the 2 leg guides. Next, I'll be measuring about 6 inches for the width of the base plate that the guide legs will be attached to, and cutting that piece in half to give me a 6-inch by 12-inch base plate. Again, I'm using the other piece of wood to give me a clean and straight cut along the plywood. After all the essential pieces are cut, I gently sand down all the sharp and rough edges. Next, we'll be removing the original router base plate and using it as a template for marking where the mounting screws will be located on the new wooden base plate. I'm measuring the center of the base plate where we can drill a pass-through hole for our router cutting bit. Next, I'm using the original router base plate and marking where the mounting screws are located. Next, we'll be measuring and marking the locations of the guide legs. In my case, the thickness of the PVC board that I'll be cutting is 3/4 of an inch thick, so that'll be measured at the center and sandwiched between the leg guides on each side. Next, I'll be drilling all the holes in the base plate, starting with the center hole for the router cutting bit. I start off with a pilot hole in the center along with all the holes to fit the screws for mounting to the router. Next, I'm using a 1-inch wood boring drill bit for the center hole. I mark where the holes for the leg guide attachments will be located and proceed with more drilling. Since the thickness of the plywood I'm using is taller than the router mounting screws, I use a larger drill bit to create countersink holes that allow the screws to fit within the base plate and secure it to the router. After all the drilling, I gently sand down the surface of the base plate, along with all the drilled holes. Next, we'll be drilling pilot holes along the narrow side of the guide legs for mounting them to the base plate, and to prevent the wood from splitting when using wood screws. Finally, we begin to assemble our newly crafted pieces together for our router guide. We'll start by securing our new base plate to the bottom of the router and using the original mounting screws within the countersunk holes. Next, we'll be installing each of the guide legs to the base plate using wood screws. The only lesson learned from my experience would be to space out the guide leg mounting screws so they're not so close to the router tool. Having them too close can make it a little difficult to install the screws with the router in the way. With everything assembled, we can test fit our new router tool guide with a piece of PVC board. As you can see, it fits perfectly and glides along the PVC board with ease. Be sure to check out my DIY cable pass-through panel video and watch it in action. Thanks for watching, and that's a DIY mission complete.